Hey everyone, it's Jill and welcome to my booktube channel. This video is going to be on October reading wrap-up and November TBR. I finished 8 books this past month, and I wanted to first talk about a book that I actually finished at the end of September, and that was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe that I listened to on Spotify. So this was really raved about. I saw it all over TikTok, Bookstagram, everyone was talking about it. But even though I didn't read this in October, I wanted to talk about my thoughts and feelings because it was just so hyped up. So this is a small town contemporary romance, and I was not a fan of this one. There's a grumpy MMC. The FMC, she inherits her, I think it was her aunt's cafe, and I thought at first that her aunt passed away or something, but it turns out that her aunt was just on vacation, I'm pretty sure. This FMC, her name was Jeannie. She actually moved away to Boston but then went back to this small town because of this cafe that her aunt gave to her. I was really looking forward to the cozy ambiance that everyone was talking about to put me into the fall mood, but unfortunately that didn't really work for me. I felt like the MMC was not over his ex, and he just made some wild assumptions about the FMC Jeannie just based off of literally nothing. I'm not really a fan of the miscommunication, or in this case, no communication trope, and as a result I gave this one 2 stars, which was really disappointing to me because I was looking forward to this, and there are a bunch of other books in this kind of small town series, I guess, which I will not be picking up after this. And in terms of the plot, I literally don't remember anything else that happened, so I feel like there wasn't really a plot and I felt like I was actually bored. After that though, I read an amazing book, and this was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I don't have it physically with me because I borrowed it from my mom, but this was set in 1940s France of 2 sisters, Isabel and Vianne. And Kristen Hanna, of course, is known for her historical fiction books, and I have been loving her books so far. She's definitely a new favorite author for me. But in this, Vianne, she has a child and she's living in this small town in France that is getting invaded by German soldiers, and it ends up that she has to host one of the captains in her own home, which she does not want to do. And she has a daughter, so she has to worry about her daughter as well. She really just wants to keep the peace and do what she's supposed to do so that she can save her family and make sure her family is all safe and everything. Isabel, on the other hand, she's more of the rebellious type, and she wants to do everything she can to actively fight and go against the Germans, and because of that she helps this rebellious group by carrying out these very risky and dangerous tasks and projects for this group. An example of a task that she has to do is helping to get these airmen to safety in Spain. But both sisters, they go through just these awful situations, but they are so brave and courageous, and it's just really inspiring to read their stories. There was something at the end that I was really impressed by, and it kind of was a twist for me at least. I did not expect it, and I was really impressed because it was written in a way that I didn't figure out what happened until it was finally revealed, and then once it was revealed I was just so shocked. And it's just such a great book. The writing is so immersive and engaging. I am so excited to read so many more. I want to read like all of Kristen Hanna books now, and this of course got 5 stars from me. I would highly recommend it. The next book I read was Heartless Hunter. This is a YA fantasy romance, enemies to lovers type. This was about Rune, who's a witch, but she has to hide her identity because where she lives, they will kill witches, and she actually helps witches from getting hunted and killed, and is known as the Crimson Moth, which the witch hunters are trying to figure out who this Crimson Moth is. The MMC is Gideon, and of course he is the captain of the witch hunters. They are known as the Blood Guard, and he is tasked to figure out who this Crimson Moth is, who is Rune. And to do this, him and his friend come up with the idea that he should kind of befriend Rune and see if she has any more information regarding the Crimson Moth. This was a little cliche. There was kind of a love triangle in this, and I felt like there wasn't much tension with them being enemies because they pretty much from the start it was obvious that they were both into each other. Overall, I didn't think the romance was particularly intriguing or strong, but I did think the ending was very unexpected and interesting, ending on a cliffhanger, so I'm really excited to pick up the sequel. I believe it's coming out in January or February 2025. So overall I gave this one 3.5 stars. I forgot to hold up the book that whole time, but I have the book here. And then after that I read The Love of My Afterlife. This is a kind of contemporary magical realism romance. This is about Delphi, and at the very start of the book she ends up dying from choking on a hamburger, and she goes to this afterlife place. It was called something, I can't remember though. And this is where she meets Jonah, and her and Jonah hit it off immediately. They have an instant spark and connection, But very soon afterwards, it is found out that Jonah was in this afterlife area by accident, so he is actually sent back to Earth because he wasn't actually supposed to die. And Delphi is really upset with this because she doesn't really have the best love life on Earth. So she was really ecstatic when she found someone she connected with and she was able to be comfortable around. So she convinces her afterlife therapist and she wants to go back to Earth so she can find Jonah and they can be together. So this afterlife therapist, she agrees and she gives Delphi 10 days to find Jonah, and he has to kiss her for her to be able to stay back on Earth, or else she has to go back to the afterlife. And this is not going to be easy for Delphi because Jonah does not have any memory of her in this afterlife interaction that they had. So he's going to be a complete stranger, like from his perspective. I guess she's going to be a complete stranger to him from his perspective is what I meant to say. So this is going to be a challenge for Delphi, but she's willing to give it a try. There was an interesting twist at the end of this, but overall I feel like I'm not into the romances where there's like a certain timeline where things have to be done, aka the 10 days. I just feel like it makes things feel really rushed in terms of relationship building. I also felt like parts of this book were very predictable, so because of that I'm giving this one 3 stars. And then after that, I read The Boyfriend. This is a thriller and there is 2 perspectives. There's like the past and then the present perspective. In the past perspective, there's this boy who is very obsessed and infatuated with this girl, and he is overall pretty troubled. In the present perspective, there's Sydney, and she is having some troubles with dating, and it starts off with her at a really horrible date. Pretty soon after that, she does end up finding the man of her dreams, but at the same time, there's a serial killer on the loose, and there are numerous suspects. The police are trying to figure everything out and catch the killer. And yeah, this one was the typical Frida McFadden kind of book, and the ending was pretty out there and unbelievable. I definitely guessed the bad person as the wrong person, and I've said this before, but I feel like I always give Frida McFadden books like 3 stars, and I just feel like it's just so out there. Like the endings are so out there and kind of out of left field that it's just like there's no way that I could have figured this out really, unless I'm just like randomly predicting, oh, this could be the killer, this could be the bad guy, to like every single character. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Frida McFadden books, but I do read them very fast and I find them entertaining, so I will continue to read them. They're just like not my favorite, if that makes sense. It might seem kind of counterproductive to continue reading this author and knowing that I'm not going to probably rate higher than 3 stars, but I feel like they're usually a nice palate cleanser because I can get through them pretty quickly and they're just easy reads, I feel like. So that is why I continue with Frida McFadden, but they're not like masterpieces, I don't think. Anyways, off with that tangent. After The Boyfriend, I read XOXO. This is a young adult romance about Jenny, and she meets Jae-woo out when she, I think it was at a KTV place, and they hit it off, and then the next night, I believe, they go on a really fun adventure, and they have a great day together, for then him to just suddenly kind of disappear and fall off the face of the earth. And then Jenny's mom, she wants to go to Korea to help her grandmother because her grandmother is sick, and Jenny decides to go along to Korea with her mom, and she is going to be enrolled into this boarding school that is for the arts because Jenny is a cello player. So she's enrolled in this boarding school, and this is where she runs into Jae-woo again, and it turns out that he is one of the main leaders of this K-pop group called XOXO. This was pretty cute. I did feel like the writing didn't flow the best, and I felt like the romance was a little bit underdeveloped, but overall I feel like it was a good YA kind of romance. I know there is a second kind of sequel or like connected book that goes with this one. I can't remember what it's called, but the ending was pretty realistic and I did enjoy reading about the found family aspect of this book. So overall I gave this one 3 stars. And after that is when I read Sharp Objects. This is about Camille, and she gets sent, she is a journalist, she gets sent to her hometown to investigate and follow up on these murders of multiple young girls. She does not like going to her hometown because she doesn't have a good relationship with her family, specifically her mother and her half-sister that she never really knew or like got close to at all, because it seems like when she grew up she kind of just like left her small town in the dust and went to the big city. I think she lives in like Chicago or something like that. But because she's in this small town for this paper, for this article, that she has to write. She has to deal with her mom and the sister who is troubled, and just overall in the town I feel like is pretty triggering for her. This was very dark and I would definitely recommend to look up trigger warnings before reading this. But I did find it interesting to read about her relationships with the various people in her family, and then as a result of like those relationships, how she managed other relationships outside of her family. For example, with meeting the police officer and then also like the younger boy who was one of the suspects. And during the middle of this though, I did feel like it was a little bit slow. Afterwards it did pick up a bit and I was really enjoying it. Again though, it's just kind of like depressing and dark, so make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Since I did watch the show before I read this book, I feel like I was just playing the scenes from the show in my head, which I definitely prefer to read the books before going into the adaptations, whether it's TV or movie, because then I can kind of think of things on my own first and then see how that was translated on the screen. But overall, this was a pretty great book in my opinion, and I gave this one 4 stars. And then I got into some gothic fantasy books and I read 2. So the first one I picked up was One Dark Window, and I was really anticipating this one for, I mean, it's not a new release or anything, but I heard a lot of people talking about it online, so I was really excited to give this one a shot. I read it on KU as well, and this is about Elspeth, and she was infected with this, what do they call it, the mist, when she was young, and this gave her the power to see the colors of different cards that people hold, which are part of the magic system of this world, and the more cards you have, the more magic that you can wield. Another thing that happened after she was infected was that she started to hear this voice inside of her head, which she calls the nightmare, and he gives her advice sometimes and helps her in certain situations. She meets this guy named Raven, and him and his family want her to use her powers to help them gather all these cards so that they can help cure the mist, because one of their family members have the mist. This book has the fake dating trope, but I thought it was rather weak. I also didn't really feel like the romance was that convincing, and the issues that the characters ran into, they were kind of resolved very quickly and just very conveniently. So unfortunately, I did give this one only 2 stars. But then after I read The Wraith King, another gothic fantasy romance, this was about Una, and she was saved by this prince when she was a teenager. After that, there's a pretty big time jump. She's now in her 20s, and she is taken by the prince's dad, so the king, because Una's dad is like not surrendering to the king. So then she's kind of used as a hostage so that her dad will do whatever the king says. But then somehow she ends up being the prince's captive. His name is Gaul and is the same prince that saved her when she was a teenager. There was a lot of spice in this. The romance was definitely at the forefront, and I feel like in terms of the plot, they were trying to find these texts to cure this plague. There's a bunch of prophecies, marriage of convenience, and enemies to lovers as well. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. I felt like it was just not great overall. Also, the spice I felt like was not really good. There were some words used that I was like, not my favorite, but I did enjoy it more than One Dark Window, which I read right before that, so I was kind of comparing the two. So yeah, 3 stars for that one, and those are all the books that I read and finished in October. There were some DNFs, but I don't even care to really mention them. And now I'm going to go into my November TBR, and I know I already did like a fall TBR in my last bookish vlog, but there are some new releases that are going to be coming out. The first one being Lost and Lassoed, and this is part of the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage, which I haven't read any of the other books, but I'm pretty sure they're like standalone novels as well. This is a cowboy small town romance, which this author is definitely known for, and I've only read Elsie Silver's kind of small town cowboy romances, which I wasn't a huge fan of, so I'm really hoping that I like this better. And this seems like it's an opposites attract, kind of enemies to lovers situation, and Teddy is the FMC, Gus is the MMC, and he's a single father, and somehow he needs help by Teddy, and Teddy is also his sister's best friend, and I guess she's going to help him with something. The description is a little vague, but I'm looking forward to this. I'm pretty sure it comes out on the 4th, so like in a few days. And then I also want to read Variation by Rebecca Yarros. I've only read Fourth Wing by Rebecca, and I know that she's kind of known for her contemporary romances, which are usually military based is what I've seen. And this is about the FMC. Her name is Allie, and she's a ballerina, but she ends up having an injury, so she goes back to her summer house, and I'm thinking it's going to be like small town vibes, because then the guy, his name is Hudson, and he works as a Coast Guard, and it appears that he was always infatuated with Allie, and then weirdly enough his niece asked Allie's help to find her birth mom, and maybe Allie and Hudson kind of work together to figure that out. I don't know, it seems kind of random for his niece to ask her for help, but maybe there's like some type of connection there, and like she helped her in the past with something else, I don't know. But I'm eager to see if I like this author's contemporary romances, because I did really enjoy Fourth Wing. I wasn't a huge fan of the sequel to that, but the third book is coming out really soon as well, I think in 2025, in like February or January maybe. So we'll see about that. And then I also want to read Cruel Winter with You. This is by Ali Hazelwood. It's a little novella. I'm pretty sure it's like 84 pages. This is going to be part of the Under the Mistletoe collection, which sounds really cute. I wonder how many novellas are going to be part of this little collection. But what I'm getting from reading the blurb is childhood friends to lovers, best friend's brother, billionaire, second chance, romance. So I wonder how that's all going to happen in 80 something pages, but I have enjoyed Ali Hazelwood's other novellas, so I feel like I will like this one as well. But those are all of the books that I'm going to be talking about for my TBR, because like I said, I already had my fall TBR in my other video. But that is going to be it for this October reading wrap up and November TBR video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've read any of these books mentioned, please let me know your thoughts on them in a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content, and I will see you guys in a new video next week. Bye!